Tommy Robinson. Now, he was actually taken to prison, and people are saying he's been abducted and taken to prison. He hadn't. He was under a suspended sentence, and he breached the conditions of that, so he has been locked up for 13 months because he was going into courts and filming, which is against the law, and he was also filming defendants before they'd been properly tried. And that's why, when he went to that court, he was actually in breach of the conditions of his suspended sentence. So he was arrested. His real name, as we know, is Stephen Yaxley Lennon. His father was Thomas Lennon. And he also uses 2 British passports going by the names of Andrew McMaster and Paul Harris. In 2014, he was convicted for conspiracy to fraudulently obtain 2 mortgages, which involved a mortgage broker called Deborah Rothschild. Now, she must be rather low down in the food chain of Rothschild because she was actually put in prison. Now, Tommy Robinson's cousin, Kevin Carroll, was a candidate for the police crime commissioner's job in Bedfordshire in 2012. But it was in the 2009 that the EDL was launched, and which is basically another state-controlled opposition group. And I had some interactions with the EDL, and what they're doing here, this is the intelligence services setting up people who are stupid. So basically, they're trying to make everybody on the right of centre or right of left. It doesn't really matter now because we haven't really got right and left anymore. We've got what we have the intelligence services calling the extreme right or the alt-right, which they're trying to label extreme right. But the people who are drawn to this are sheep. They're absolute sheep, the people who go down there shouting about Tommy Robinson, because he's basically an Israeli agent. He's got pictures of him on an IDF tank. He works for Rebel Media, which is a completely Zionist operation. And there's him, there's Katie Hopkins, there's this guy called Pat Condell, and there's this other one called David Vance. And they all sing from the same hymn sheet. In other words, get Christians to attack Muslims for a third-party interest. And people can't get the strategy of this at all. So it's basically, yeah, far right, far left. We've got far left. The far left are much more dangerous because the far left are being promoted by the state, and the far left are agents of the state, agents of Soros as well, of course, but they are agents of the state. And it's all down to breaking it up into identity politics. Now, basically, a lot of this EDL stuff, it came out of football hooligans, really. That's where the big recruiting ground is. And he's said that in 2015, Tommy Robinson, or Stephen Yaxley Lennon, or whichever other name he uses, said that the police attempted to blackmail him into becoming a double agent to feed them information on Britain First leader Paul Golding. Now, this is where it's all starting to get very surreal, because you've got this, in my opinion, complete puppet that's been put there to foment this far right, which doesn't really exist, because I've been all over the country and I haven't found any pockets of real far right extremism. There aren't any. There just aren't. In fact, what seems to be happening, even in places that used to be kind of considered to be right wing, which doesn't really exist anymore, you are now getting this huge kind of liberal backlash against everything.
So how did Tommy Robinson become a police asset? How did Tommy go from becoming a football hooligan to being controlled opposition for the British government and an agent for Israel, MOSSAD.
He was that scared of his name being out in the public domain that he took it upon himself to put himself in a situation where he held my mother hostage and threatened to kidnap her to intimidate me. This man was arrested in flying to Glasgow. He was arrested, armed police went round his house and he was put on police bail. Within 3 weeks, he was released off bail. The leader of the English Defence League that's caused all this problem, arrested, armed police, within 3 weeks is released off bail.
First of all, back in February, I was waiting to fly out to a Scottish Defence League demonstration in Edinburgh. I was stopped at Luton Airport by Special Branch.
Last night at 11:45, I got a call from my mother's home. Tommy Robinson, the leader of the English Defence League, had taken my mother hostage in her own home and called me, threatening to kidnap her, him and the few people he was with. You know, what I do with my life and my lifestyle is my business. It's nothing to do with my family. But yet Tommy Robinson, the leader of the English Defence League, took it upon himself last night, obviously after a weekend of drinking and snorting cocaine, to go and take my mother hostage, to intimidate me and to threaten to kidnap her if we didn't step back. Like I've said, if you look over the videos, we've made things perfectly clear throughout. Chris Renton has been the issue from the very beginning. Look at the evidence of what Chris Renton done to me. How can we not be justified to have said and done what has been said and done? How can it be justified that Tommy Robinson didn't expel him, that those people around him didn't expel him? Now the question has to be, what hold does Chris Renton have over Tommy Robinson? What hold do the people have around them?
They took all they took all computers They took both my mobile phones. They took even my dad's computer. They took... one officer sat down for 3 hours in the house where my missus and kids are. Sat down for 3 hours going through a load of files. Right. 3 months later, roughly 3 months later, was it? August, June, July, August. Again, the police came to my door, 6 o'clock in the morning. They came in, they arrested myself, which I was expecting anyway. They arrested me, they said, on financial irregularities, money laundering.
Well, he came along with a little bit of style and a lot of front and convinced people he was, the saviour, the great white hope. There was an opinion poll just the other day, actually, who most speaks for England. And I was in there at 6%. He was there at 5%. I'll tell you what, over the next couple of weeks, he was shown on television yesterday, meekly taking his shoes off and walking into a mosque wearing his Union Jack socks. I'm going to have the rest of that vote of his, because it's ours, actually. And, he came along, he's been puffed up, hyped up by their Zionist backers, by the mass media, now by these fake moderate Muslims. Whether they're certainly fake, they're either run by the British government.
I'm joking. Oh, that's all right. No, don't, seriously. I think I'm nuts. No, seriously, I don't. Not all Muslims are bad. No. Let's go before we just most. I'm only joking. I've been Breivik, they'll shoot me. Up in Norway, they'll shoot me.
Shirley Williams.
I'm glad you pointed that out. When I had my hood up and I had goggles on, this is what we're up against as an organisation. I said ribbit because I looked like a frog because I had goggles on and I was drunk. I didn't say Breivik. They put a subtitle as Breivik. I didn't say Breivik. I said ribbit. So
An ethnic hatred that led to the slaughter of scores of innocent young people. To Anders Breivik, the massacre, to which he freely admits, was a justified strike against the political left for supporting open borders and multiculturalism. And even though the staunchest of hardliners condemn Breivik's horrific actions, anti-immigration sentiment is growing across Europe.
Other groups express their condolences and then are quick and separate themselves from Breivik, but then are also quick to lay blame at left-wing politicians, which they say are responsible because they allowed immigration to happen and effectively pushed this guy to the edge.
It's a cry that many feel is not being heard by European governments as people show their discontent, voting increasingly for previously marginal anti-immigration parties and joining street movements like the anti-Islamic English Defence League.
Did you ever meet Anders Breivik?
I never. Can I start by expressing our deepest sympathies and our prayers for all the victims and all the families and the entire country of Norway. And God bless them.
Up in Norway, they'll shoot me.
Who committed these atrocious acts was able to come on your demonstrations?
I don't believe he has been on our demonstration, but I believe we should stop speculating and look at the facts. Facts.
I am looking at some evidence here from Daryl Hobson. Do you know who he is?
I don't know. But
I thought you were arrested with him once, weren't you?
That's the poppy burning incident. There was other people arrested. I was arrested on my own on that day. But page 14.
You were arrested at the same time. Yes.
No, I wasn't. On the same day. Page 1438 of his dossier, he states the English Defence League are an anti-racist, anti-fascist, anti-Nazi organisation. We can never coincide with this organisation because our ideologies are so far apart. That's what he says.
We'll come to his manifesto in a short time. Mr. Hobson claims.
Who is Mr. Hobson? Mr. Hobson, some random member out of 100,000 members.
Sorry, I thought first of all we don't actually know how
100,000 supporters on the internet. Dow Hobson's one of them.
Do you?
Yeah. No. But more to the point, this man
who has been arrested.
Let's not listen to what Dow Hobson says. Let's listen to what we encourage integration.
He had 600
He doesn't praise you.
EDL member
he doesn't praise us.
friends.
If you listen to what he says in his manifesto rather than speculation, let's look at the facts of what he says on page 1438. I can actually read them. I can read the facts if you want. He actually says.
Just tell me, out of his manifesto, how much of it do you disagree with? 1,500 pages. How much do you disagree with?
Can I state that after 7/7, would you have said this to a Muslim leader because they shared the same ideology?
That's completely irrelevant.
Parts of the same ideology. We believe Islam is a threat. Do we want to stop this happening on British soil, or do we want to play the blame game? We should be trying to learn from this incident.
I'm just trying to establish some facts about the connections between your organisation and his.
Yeah, the EDL man said so.
Presumably, you've also read his listing on one of your forums. Hello to all you good English men and women. Just wanted to say you're a blessing to all in Europe in these dark days.
This was before his manifesto was released, so you can see that his opinion...
Indeed it was. It was almost the last thing he published before he disappeared to make his bombs.
Yeah, and then you've seen his manifesto that he released. The point is, there is a massive...
Up in Breivik, they were shooting. Up in Norway, they were shooting.
He seemed to be the Conservatives' dream candidate, a Muslim British Army officer for 11 years who'd done tours of Iraq and Afghanistan. This was Afzal Amin speaking out against extremism after the murder of Lee Rigby.
We won't give in to this extremist narrative, whether it comes from one element or another.
Contrast that to the man apparently filmed seemingly making Machiavellian deals with the far-right English Defence League.
I mean, this is my fantasy, yeah. If you disagree with any of you, please say so. My idea is this, and I've discussed it a bit with Tommy and lots of other people. If I can demonstrate to the people in Dudley that I can be a positive voice for community cohesion, for development, for campaigning against the evils and the terrorism and the child grooming and all the rest of it, then that will help me a lot in the forthcoming election. And one way of doing that is, if you were to announce a second march, say in early May, that you're going to come back and do another march about the mosque, about the planning commissions, whatever else, etc. And then we have 2 meetings with the chief of police, members of the Muslim community. We all play our roles. You say, yeah, we're going to do a march, we campaign, etc. They say, no, don't do a march, etc. We play the roles. We have a second meeting where things are a bit calmer. Then in the third one, we have a press conference where we say that we were going to you say that we were going to do a march. The chief of police, Afzal Amin, former army officer, members of the Muslim community, we've sat together, we've had some discussions, and we realised that we're on a campaign against these things, and we're going to work closer together in addressing these evils in our society. And we want the rest of the country to pay attention to this model of working to avoid conflict and bloodshed and tension and so on. That will achieve 3 things. Firstly, it will bring the English Defence League out of the shadows into the mainstream political debate. Suddenly, now, you're going to be a casualty because you left, a new chairman came, and look at the change. So you're going to get all the credit. You're going to become a casualty. You're not looking for it. But I'm just saying that they're going to think about how this happened. So when you say, well, as the chairman, my political philosophy is that negotiation, discussion, working partnership, etc. People will listen. The second thing it will achieve is the issues that you want to campaign against. Nationally, people will think, okay, actually, there's a better model of dealing with them than we've had so far. And the third thing it achieves is, if I win my election, in Parliament you've got a very strong, unshakable ally who's going to work hard to get you involved in all the institutions of the state and get you the exposure you need and the people in Parliament need to you to understand the issues. Because like I said from the very beginning, 95% of what you want to campaign against, we're with you. So if we can work together in the next 6-7 weeks, get a couple of people from Dudley, we'll give them a small salary. Because I would love to be able to arrive in Parliament and say, I won this seat because these 3,000 white working class English voters that have never voted before. Is it only 3,000?
If you manage to pull this off, and I arrive in Parliament with a 3,000-4,000 majority, I can say to David Cameron, I won this seat because we've reached out with our network to these people, and here are their views. Their views are, absolutely, they don't want to see mega mosques in Dudley.
Afsal, it's Tommy.
Hi, how are you, mate?
I'm not bad, you?
Yeah, very good, thanks.
What's happening? How you doing, mate? Can you hear me? Oh, sorry, I got bunged.
So did you get home all right that evening?
Yeah, I got home. I didn't go home till 4 o'clock. The M1 was shut. I didn't get until 4 a.m.
Well, because roadworks.
Yeah, because of roadworks. And then I had a mad day yesterday as well. I was out all day. I was in Basildon, then London, and I was out late, man. So, I'm good. How did you think it went?
Well, yeah, I mean, from our side, yeah, we're very happy to proceed.
Yeah.
What's Edda saying?
Edders will do it. Edders will do it.
Great.
It's just when and how.
Well, if he announces in the next couple of days, at the 2nd of May, the EDL event, Britain First has just announced a march, haven't they, in Dudley?
Britain First have announced one in Dudley. When for?
Yeah, let me just check my email. I've not read the email yet. I just received it. Let me just see what it says.
May the 9th?
Yeah.
Okay, so when do you want Edders to announce his for?
2nd of May.
2nd of May?
Yeah.
Okay, and do you know what he should be saying? Because you said you need 2 people on the ground. And you met Andy, didn't you?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
He's thinking of Andy and someone else, because Andy knows everyone in Cateshill. He knows everyone in all those areas.
Yeah.
So he's thinking of those. It's just Edders doesn't know what he's offering them, what he's actually putting to them, what he's saying to them, how many days, what he needs them to do. Edders is not aware of really what he can say to them, who's paying them, etc., or whether he doesn't know what to say to them. You know what I mean?
You mean we can't pay them? Because that would be illegal.
You can't pay them. No, okay.
Yeah, that would be illegal. So what's being proposed to you is that you hire them.
Okay.
And then we'll work out what contribution, if any, they can make directly to our campaign and what they can do directly for you. But let's talk about that face to face.
Yep. Okay then. Cool. No problem.
Yeah, because we obviously can't hire people in that way because that would be against election rules, and we don't want to break any rules.
That's okay. So what? So I'll pay them, and then we'll sort something out between me and you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no problem. Okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about that face to face.
Yeah. Okay.
So if they go ahead and say that Britain First on a march on the 9th of May, we don't even mention it, just announce it and say the Britain First publicity stunt. She's only that they've only got 20 followers anyway.
Yeah, they have.
She's not going to get many people here. But the EDL, we are going to march again on the 2nd of May, and then we'll start our formal. Once that's announced, then in about 2 days' time, we'll arrange the first meeting between the Chief of Police, Edders, Andy, a couple of local Muslim lads that you've already met as well, and we'll have that meeting. Then we'll have a second meeting, and the third one will be a press conference where we'll announce actually we're not going to have it because it's too disruptive and too expensive, etc. and so on.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll speak to Edders and tell him you get the ball in motion. Yeah.
Great.
All right, cool.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
No
Cheers,
problem.
mate.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
I'm being blackmailed. I'm being extorted. That's what's happening. I've always known the rule that if you're ever being blackmailed, don't pay. I mean, even if you think you can pay a blackmailer, they'll just ask you for more a second time. But you're scared, so you pay. I thought I could make the problem go away, so I actually paid, and then I paid again. But then they threatened again last night, actually, and then again this morning, so I haven't slept. So I called my lawyers this morning, and I've decided I'm done. I'm going to do what I should have done a few weeks ago and just pull the trigger on myself on my own terms. That's the only thing that takes that power away from an extortionist. It's a pretty bad choice, isn't it? So I'm going to take the power away from them, and I'm going to tell you what happened myself. It happened in the UK. Just a bit of background. As you know, we've got this great guy out there on our team, Tommy Robinson, smart, brave, tough. He used to be the head of the English Defence League, do little videos for us, and they were good because he's a natural, but boy, were they crummy. I mean, look at that bad lighting, look at that bad webcam, it was pretty bad. And then one day, it was amazing, look at that. Who did that? What happened? Well, this guy, Kalen Robertson, who just approached Tommy and attached himself to Tommy and made Tommy's videos great. We had no idea who he was, but we were grateful to him, so we offered to pay him a few bucks to work part-time to help Tommy. And then someone else just joined the team, named George Llewellyn John. He agreed to be the cameraman for Tommy. It was great. Suddenly we went from one guy to a whole team. And then a terrorist struck Westminster Bridge, and Tommy and our two new guys were there, and they taped this raw, viral video. It went super viral, seen millions of times. And the next day, Kalin said to us that he was fired from his full-time job because he appeared in that video with Tommy. Okay, well, I mean, I felt bad for him, and he was being helpful to us, so I immediately hired him full-time. No background check, no interview, just did it right then and there. And George was unemployed too, so we hired him too, full-time, right then and there. George and Kalin are a couple, I soon learned, but I don't care about stuff like that. They did funny little things though, like panicky calls in the middle of the night asking for us to immediately advance them 150 pounds or 300 pounds by PayPal to cover strange expenses, like asking for cash to pay for an Uber. Ubers don't take cash. All right, but no problem, they're just young lads. When I finally met them in London, they showed me their squalid apartment downtown. So my old friend said, Ezra, pay them. But even that wasn't enough. They started calling our accountant and demanding more money, and sooner. And they refused to hand over our property like our old footage. Here's the contract they signed for their huge severance. As you can see, it was really a contract for a shakedown. Not so much for severance. Most of the terms there were a contract to shut them up, to stop them from lying. But they immediately broke the contract, and now they weren't just threatening me or my friend. They were threatening Tommy Robinson too. Kalin Robertson and George Llewellyn John threatened to release video footage they claimed to have taken of Tommy Robinson confessing that he punched a guy at Ascot in self-defense. They said they had Tommy Robinson on tape confessing to that. And then if we didn't pay them thousands of pounds, they'd rat out Tommy, whether it was to the police or to a UK tabloid that would just love that video footage. Well, I got on a plane and I flew to London to meet with them, to meet with Tommy and George Llewellyn John, who was speaking on behalf of himself and his boyfriend, Kalin. And I'm ashamed to admit it, I signed another contract, one that I had personally written, this one, to buy their silence for Tommy Robinson. I specifically mentioned Tommy Robinson in there. Not that Tommy had done anything wrong. I don't even know if they have the footage they claim they have. But even the allegation coming from these two would be credible enough that every tabloid in the country would say Tommy was a criminal. And if they were threatening to report Tommy for an actual crime, well, I don't know, maybe Tommy would go back to prison. So this was a double extortion. Extorting me by threatening to say I'm pocketing money that's supposed to go to other places, that's a lie. And threatening Tommy with extortion by threatening him with possible jail. Again, I have no idea what kind of footage they stole from us. I don't know what they have. So I'm sorry, I paid it again. I actually paid this. Here's the contract I personally took to the UK to pay them off. I put in some money and Tommy put in some money and we got them to sign the contract. All right, but then today, this morning, we learned that they were proceeding with the extortion anyways. They were going to do all the things they said they wouldn't do if we paid them. Or maybe we'd have to pay them again. I phoned Tommy up. He immediately called George and Kalin, but they were adamant. They were going to do it. In fact, Tommy learned that the two of them had secretly recorded our conversation when I went there to agree to the payoff. They were recording that even while they were blackmailing. Once they were setting up the next blackmail with a recording. I know this sounds so insane, but they were doing it. They secretly recorded me trying to talk them out of it, trying to reason them out of it, trying to negotiate them out of it, even threatening to sue them if they extorted me. I brought a copy of a lawsuit from Canada that I'd once filed, and I said, I'll do it to you. They recorded everything we said, everything they said, as they tried to wring more money out of us. You know what? I'm sorry, enough. Sorry, it's enough. It's not just that we can't afford it. We're a small company. We rely on donations. And frankly, you want to talk about ethics, it would be unethical to use our viewers' money that was given to us to build the company to pay off blackmail. So what do? Well, I called up my lawyers in the UK and I asked them. 3 of them got together on the phone. They've given me lots of advice. Some of it is private that I won't share with you, like the right way to report extortion to police. Some of it is public advice, like if you're being blackmailed, tell on yourself first. You say what I've said. They say they have Tommy on tape saying he acted in self-defense. I spoke to Tommy, and he said he's fine with me revealing what they have on him. He agrees with me. We have to do this. They have other rough language by Tommy on tape. They have a lot of people secretly. Just a warning.
I'll put you asleep.
I'll put you asleep.
Get the fuck away from the camera. The fuck away from the camera. You tried to touch our camera. Yes, I don't fucking try and touch the camera then. I told you that 5 times.
Keep your life.
I will keep my life. You're not going to take my fucking life. Well, you think you're going to take my fucking life? Take my fucking life.
Right. And you cannot. You cannot.
You see that?
And you cannot. Look.
Okay. One way this is going to go, you're going to end up knocked down unconscious.
I can bring the cars.
Another male. What we do then, Macaulay's going to just load up the CCTV on him. We'll go through that. And you walk from here. From here.
Well, it's right next to Screw's office.
There you are. There, yeah. So you go over, you punch him, yeah? What can you tell me about this?
Remember my face, yeah?
Welcome to Luton. Did you get that on camera? Hi, I've just been attacked in Luton Town Centre.
How are we doing, all right?
Yeah, good.
Sure. Where'd they go? Tell me what's happened.
It was very, very frightening.
Yeah, please.
And Tommy Robinson put out a video saying Mohammed actually assaulted a police officer. That statement from Tommy Robinson is fake news.
Lies. Fake news. Complete fake news.
And this is where I absolutely have to call out Tommy Robinson for posting completely fake news to his Facebook profile.
Complete fake news. And everyone's going to be told lies. 100% lies.
A couple days ago, we saw an event in London called The Day for Freedom, where several people got up on stage to talk about why free speech is so important. In my video yesterday, I briefly mentioned a controversial incident where Ali Dawa, who is opposed to hate speech and is kind of at odds with many people there, was not allowed to speak. I mentioned how he was attacked. I now have learned a lot more about that incident. His friend Mohammed Hijab was also attacked. A lot of people are accusing them of provoking, and Tommy Robinson put out a video saying Mohammed actually assaulted a police officer. That statement from Tommy Robinson is fake news, and in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what I've learned so far and what I can confirm. But the worst part is that Ali Dawa and Mohammed Hijab were attacked unprovoked. And this was confirmed to me by one of the organizers of the event who was also in the melee when it broke out, and it was confirmed to me by witnesses who saw it happen. And this is where I absolutely have to call out Tommy Robinson for posting completely fake news to his Facebook profile. In a video Tommy Robinson posted the other day, it says in the beginning, Mohammed Hijab assaults police. The description of the video says, Muslim MMA fighter turns up to provoke trouble at the Day of Freedom, and his film crew live stream him hitting a police officer. #own-goal. That is completely disingenuous. I saw them having a calm and friendly debate, and I watched Mohammed Hijab actually try to de-escalate a situation, and Ali and Mo had big smiles on their faces where they politely discussed things with people outside the event. Last night, I got a community guideline strike, and now I can't live stream. So I was intending on doing a live stream tonight and very frequently, but it seems so long as this strike is upheld, for the next 3 months, no live streams. And what's even scarier is that if I get another strike, I can't upload any videos. Now, the video that got removed and got a strike was the video about Tommy Robinson and Ali Dawa in the UK. And this is a video where I talk about Mohammed Hijab and Ali Dawa and getting attacked at this event. And YouTube said that it was promoting dangerous acts, violence, or drug abuse.
Get that camera out my fucking face, Get that camera out my
Will Ali Dawa be speaking?
Yes, Ali Dawa will be speaking. He's our surprise idiot of the day guest. Clearly said Ali Dawa was not invited to speak.
I thought you were speaking. No, they're not letting me in. They're saying, no, we're not letting you in now.
Clearly said Ali Dawa was not invited to speak.
One person coming in.
Clearly said Ali Dawa was not invited to speak.
I'd be happy if my right to freedom of speech, where I was invited today, would happen today. If it doesn't, you know what that means?
You're on the menu.
Clearly said Ali Dawa was not invited to speak. Clearly said Ali Dawa was not invited to speak.
God, they've actually got Ali Dawa. It's happening, it's happening.
Clearly said Ali Dawa was not invited to speak.
What are you struggling with?
I can't say. And it's my lips are sealed, ironically.
So the thing is,
Clearly said Ali Dawa was not invited to speak.
In this next clip, you can clearly see a woman telling me the reason I'm not being let in is because I didn't come to a security briefing and because Tommy Robinson tried to contact me and he couldn't get through. But if I wasn't invited, let's watch and see.
Are you here alone, darling?
no, I said I'll come alone. I said they don't even need to come. They're just going to record.
The scale of balance, but I have to look at the other side. I mean, they have a reason why they're not allowing.
You can ask them, but look, they're not. I just came into school.
And I will definitely ask them. They sat down with them and had a conversation about security.
Nobody invited me.
Yes, they did.
No one.
Yes, they did. I was there when they did.
They said to me, come, and I didn't come. Nobody said to me, come, we're going to have a security issue. Nobody said this to me. Just tell Tommy he's a hypocrite. You're not allowed to speak.
You didn't have a discussion. We all have to talk about security issues. This is a requirement that everyone has to go through.
3 posts saying he's categorically not invited to speak. Now, those posts were removed from my Facebook. I didn't remove them. An admin removed them. Why? I don't know. But they were removed.
I wanted to come up on the stage, say things that would really rile people up. There could have been a riot. There could have been a bloodbath. Could have been a bloodbath. Could have been a bloodbath.
I could see what a success it was. The fact that we brought thousands of people at 5 days' notice into Speaker's Corner who behaved impeccably. And the only aggression was from the Religion of Peace followers. One of them's beating people with a stick. Will he be arrested? Probably not. Will he be prosecuted? Probably not. But yeah, again, I'm grateful to everyone. I went on a bit of a come down. I went so high up. It was such an amazing feeling. And only when I got home and went through it all and watched the feedback and could see how it looked and how it watched, that I could see what a success it was. The fact that we brought thousands of people at 5 days' notice into Speaker's Corner who behaved impeccably. And the only aggression was from the Religion of Peace followers. One of them's beating people with a stick. Will he be arrested? Probably not. Will he be prosecuted? Probably not. But yeah, again, I'm grateful to everyone. The only aggression was from the Religion of Peace followers.
That the violence does not continue with these hooligans and thugs that have decided to come here with weapons to attack our freedom of speech, ironically, in a day where their main man was coming to do a speech in freedom of speech. Guys, this is what happens. Guys, whenever Tommy comes to any location, he creates violence. Extremism begets extremism.
Let's go straight to our guest, Tommy Robinson, leader of the EDL. Tommy, who are you?
Shalom, George. As you just said, I am the leader of the English Defence League.
I'm asking who you are first. Is that your real name, Tommy Robinson?
No, it's not my real name. You know my real name, obviously.
I don't actually. I'm just wondering why you're calling yourself Tommy Robinson if that's not your name.
It's Stephen Lennon. I started off calling myself Tommy Robinson. The reason for that was because we were going up and opposing against militant Islam, a very extreme fraction of the Islamic ideology, which kill people in the name of Allah. And we're opposing them, bringing heat on them, and putting heat on their community. And automatically, they will want to take that revenge out on me. So originally, I started off hiding my identity, but now I'm proud to show everyone who I am and stand up against it and hold my head up.
So you're not in the same danger you thought you were, or?
I am. Yeah, of course I'm in danger, but
But why have you started to use your own name now then? That's what I'm trying to establish.
Because it was exposed, not by myself.
Okay.
Obviously, I want to keep myself safe, I want to keep my family safe.
Well, I honestly didn't know your real name, but I'm glad that you've revealed it, because it's always better to talk to people in their real names. And secondly, I said, who are you? What are you? You said you're the leader of the EDL. Who made you the leader?
I made myself the leader. I formed the English Defence League, and we formed it in Luton after the protest against our soldiers, and it's just spread as a phenomenon across the country, gaining support.
So you made yourself the leader, but you're a big supporter of democracy.
Yeah, I am, yeah. I've actually met you, George, in 2007, in Luton, actually. I went along to a respect party. It was on Dalla Road. I don't know if you remember.
I don't actually know.
No, well, you was holding a meeting. I went along, I brought a bird with me, and we went to see what the respect party was all about.
You brought a bird with you? What, a parrot?
Yeah, no, I brought a girl with me, and we come to the meeting, and as we walked into the meeting, there was someone stopped at the door, and as we were coming in, and they said, you need to sit this side and you need to sit that side. And I asked them what they're on about. And I could see loads of Muslim men on one side and loads of Muslim women on the other side. And I said, well, I've come with my missus. I want to sit with my missus. No, you can't. And I said, isn't your party called the Respect Party? Yeah. Or am I missing something? Because are you separating me from my missus when I want to sit down with my missus and listen to what your party's about? And there was another Afro-Caribbean man there who was kicking off at the same point because he wanted to sit with his missus. And that's when I just, in my own view, thought what a laughing stock this Respect Party is, and why the hell is it calling itself Respect?
Well, that was just about as big a pack of lies as you claiming that your name was Tommy Robinson. Because no such thing has ever happened at any Respect Party meeting. But we're not here to talk about respect, we're here to talk about you. And in principle, in particular rather, we want to talk about the allegation by the police that your extremist, violent, hate-filled behaviour and rhetoric is fueling extremism in our country. What do you say?
I think that the police officer said that I'm going down to the sea. He didn't word it the way you've just worded it in any sort of way.
I've got his quotes here. If you want me to read them out, I will.
Yeah, go on then. Because I don't remember him saying a hate-filled rhetoric. I listened to it this morning.
It says, violence and intimidation are unacceptable wherever it comes from. You can't tackle extremism by being extremist yourself. You don't prevent hatred by being hateful yourself. That's what the police minister said.
Okay, well, as I said this morning when I spoke to someone about this, September 11 was our fault, 7/7 was our fault, the last 1400 years of Islam being at war with non-Islam, that's our fault, everything's our fault. It's the work now.
What do you know about the last 1400 years of Islam?
Now it is the work.
Your knuckles are dragging the ground. What do you know about the last 1400 years of Islam? You know nothing about Islam.
Now, okay, George, are you a supporter? Are you a supporter of Hamas?
You want me to start quizzing you, Tommy, because it'll embarrass you? You want me to start asking you?
I'm asking you a question. Are you a supporter of Hamas?
I'm asking the questions for... No, I'm not a supporter of Hamas.
You don't support Hamas? I've
what
watched
does
the
that
video
have
with you
to do?
openly.
Tommy,
I'll stick by quotes that I say. If I say something, I'll stand by it.
You talk about the last 1400 years of Islam, about which I'm absolutely certain you are sublimely ignorant. You know nothing about the last 1400 years of Islam because your knuckles are dragging the ground. You're an ignoramus who describes women as birds and then as their missus, who calls himself Tommy but his name's something else, and who's been accused by the police and the police minister of being hateful and extremist. Now, let me ask you a question. Why do you send your thugs into city centres to create havoc for the police, expense for the taxpayer, and leading to dozens, if not hundreds, of arrests since the operation that you started?
Because there's an Islamist epidemic across this country. Even last week, there was a study about 12 universities, and a third of Muslims said that killing was justified in the name of Islam. 90%. It's an epidemic. We've waited.
Let me stop you there, Tom. Which 12 universities held a study in which a third of Muslims said that killing in the name of Islam was correct, was acceptable?
I looked it up.
No, you don't have it because you're an ignorant wee nyaff. You're quoting a non-existent survey. You're quoting a survey on national radio.
28% of them. I'll ring you back in a minute and find out.
No, don't ring me back in a minute. You've just made a completely false allegation about 12 universities and about the Respect Party in Luton and about your name and about a conversation with me that you've never had.
And you've just said you don't support Hamas, and I've just watched a video of you on the internet on YouTube where you openly say you support Hamas, so why would you deny it now that you're on the radio?
Well, that's another lie.
You said Hamas are not terrorists. You said Hamas are not
another lie.
You said Hamas are not terrorists, did you not?
Hamas are not terrorists is not the same thing as saying I support Hamas.
So did you say Hamas are not terrorists?
Don't you think something calling itself...
Answer the question, George. Did you say
Hamas are not terrorists? I'm saying it.
Can I answer?
I'm saying it. Shut up and let me say it. Hamas are not terrorists. Full stop. I do not support Hamas. Full stop.
Can I speak?
Yeah, go
right?
on.
Hamas Charter. Israel will exist and continue until Islam obliterates it. That is the first thing in their charter. That is the first thing in their charter. You're saying they're not terrorists.
Actually,
the EU it's one of
that's
the
as accurate. That's as accurate.
Let me talk, George? Are you going to let me talk?
No, not when you're telling lies. No. I'm not going to...
The EU listed them as prescribed terrorist organisation in January the 26th, 2009. The Hadith, which features many times in their charter, actually, your listeners will not believe this, but it has a thing which says the final day of judgment will come when all the Jews are dead. This is in the Hadith, in the charter, and actually says... No, can you let me talk, George? And it actually says...
I'm not going to let you... No,
but you're saying they're not terrorists. You're saying they're not terrorists. You've said that they're not terrorists.
Listen,
Tommy,
we're not on here to debate Hamas.
Okay,
if you want to debate Palestine with me, you better get one of your friends who actually knows something
I want to
about
explain
it.
that you're saying they're not terrorists, and what I'm saying is, in their charter...
Tommy, you've only got a minute or so left, so trust me, you don't want to waste it with a debate about the Hamas charter.
You want to talk about why we formed the English Defence League? We formed the English Defence League because Islamic extremism is spiralling out of control.
That's what I want to ask you about. That's what I want to ask you about. That's what I want to ask you about. If you'll stop and let me ask you about it. You say you're against Islamic extremists, but the truth is you're against Islam. You're against Muslims because you march against mosques in which there's no extremism at all. Your people chant slogans against Muslims, whether they're extreme or extremely moderate. So why don't you come clean, like you've now had to do with your name? Why don't you come clean and say you think that Muslims shouldn't exist?
I have no problem with Muslims. I have a problem with Islam when it's taken in its 7th century barbaric form in modern Britain. That's when I have a problem. And I have a problem with Muslims not doing enough against the extremists. Can you just let me talk and finish without butting in? Muslims fly planes into the Twin Towers. No.
Some evil is just, it can't be explained.
Are these people happy? Are they joyous now? Are they celebrating?
Oh, absolutely. They're celebrating. There's one report, this has not been confirmed, but there's several reports that there was a cell, one of these cells, across the Hudson River. And they got on this is the report. I emphasize, I don't know this for a fact, but there's several witnesses who say this happened. They got on the roof of the building to look across. They knew what was going to happen. Yeah. They were waiting for it to happen, and when it happened, they celebrated. They jumped for joy.
In the days after 9/11, while Ground Zero continued to smolder, millions heard Dan Rather and various media outlets repeat vague and unconfirmed reports of arrests that took place that day. These rumors held that Middle Eastern men, presumably Arabs, were arrested in explosive-packed vans in various places around the city on September 11th, and that some had even been photographing and celebrating those events. What most do not realize is that those reports were not mere rumors, and we now have thousands of pages of FBI, CIA, and DOJ reports documenting those arrests.
My binoculars, and I could see the towers from my window, and this is where I'm looking, and all of a sudden, down there, I see this van park. And I see 3 guys on top of the van, and I could see that they were like happy. They didn't look shocked to me. They didn't look shocked.
The men were spotted shortly after 8:46 a.m., yet somehow at this early stage, just minutes after the first plane strike on the World Trade Center, they were already positioned in a parking lot in Liberty State Park, taking pictures of the towers and celebrating. They left the scene shortly after being spotted, and at 3:31 p.m. the FBI issued an all-points bulletin advising officers in the greater New York area to be on the lookout for a white 2000 Chevrolet van with Urban Moving Systems sign on back. At 3:56 p.m., the van was spotted traveling eastward on State Route 3 in New Jersey and pulled over by Officer Scott DiCarlo and Sergeant Dennis Ravelli of the East Rutherford Police Department. Inside they found 5 men: Sivan Kurzberg and his brother Paul, Yaron Schmel, Oded Elner, and Omar Marmari.
A major terrorist manhunt began, and just 6 hours after the attack, the van was stopped at a roadblock by patrolman Scott DiCarlo.
We were asked to detain the van and the passengers. They were just removed from the vehicle, patted down for safety precaution, and detained.
911 call at 410 Park.
I think once the FBI arrived, one of them stated that they were on our side. So there's something to that effect.
According to the police report of the incident, Sivan Kurzberg told Officer DiCarlo, "We are Israeli. We are not your problem. Your problems are our problems. The Palestinians are the problem." Their official story: they were just Israeli tourists working for a moving company who had heard about the first World Trade Center strike and rushed to get a better view of the events.
They told interrogators they were working for Urban Moving, a shipping and storage firm run by an Israeli businessman who often employed Israeli students without work permits. The men say there was an innocent explanation for what was found in the van and their behavior on 9/11. They were, they say, simply on a working holiday.
We heard in the news that one of the plane was crashing down the building, and we thought it was an accident at the beginning. So we went up to the roof of Urban Moving, and we saw the building burning.
There is a better view from a building in Jersey that is up a hill, a straight line to the World Trade Center. We decided to go up there. It's like 2-3 minutes from the office, stand over there and take some pictures. Everyone wants a picture like this in his camera.
Although this narrative is still trotted out when the story of the dancing Israelis is raised in the media, it is an easily demonstrable lie. FBI reports confirmed that the men were not taking somber pictures of a horrific event. When their 76 pictures were developed, they revealed the men had indeed been celebrating, smiling, hugging each other, and high-fiving. One of the pictures even featured Sivan Kurzberg holding a lighter up with the burning tower in the background. And these were no ordinary tourists. Oded Elner had $4,700 stuffed into his sock. They lied to the police about where they had been that morning. They were carrying plane tickets for immediate departure to different places around the globe. The FBI confirmed that 2 of the men had ties to Israeli intelligence and came to suspect that they had indeed been on a mission for the MOSSAD. And of course, after returning to Israel, Elner claimed on national Israeli TV that they had been sent there to document the event.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of MOSSAD. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event.
Their purpose was to document the event? But how could they possibly have known what event they were documenting at that point, before the second plane strike, when those few who even knew about the situation had assumed it to be an accident or pilot error? And when did they arrive at the parking lot to document the event anyway? The FBI reports show how the men gave confused and often conflicting accounts of when and how they learned about what was happening and when they arrived at the parking lot. Oded Elner even said they had arrived there shortly after 8 a.m., which would have been 45 minutes before the attacks even began. This is in line with one of the eyewitnesses that had placed their urban moving systems van at the parking lot at 8 a.m. How could they have been in place and ready to document the event unless they knew what was about to happen? Any way you cut it, this story is unbelievable. Men with documented connections to Israeli intelligence and working in the United States without appropriate permits were detained after having been caught celebrating the attack on the World Trade Center at a time when no one knew that the WTC strike was an attack. So surely these men are locked behind bars to this day, right? Surely they were transferred to Guantanamo and held without trial for 15 years as part of the war on terror, weren't they? No. They were immediately transferred to federal custody, held for 71 days, and then deported back to Israel. The owner of the urban moving systems company that had employed them, Dominic Suter, was investigated by the FBI too. They concluded that urban moving may have been providing cover for an Israeli intelligence operation, and even seized records and computer systems from the company's offices. When they went back to question him again on September 14th, he had fled back to Israel.
Burning schools with children because they're not covered their hair. No Muslim outrage. Muslims cut off the heads of 3 teenage girls. No Muslim outrage. Muslims murdered. That was in Iraq. That was in Iraq. Just let me. Muslims kill 80 tourists.
We're talking about the English Defence League.
Yes,
we're talking about Britain. You're whipping up hatred.
No, you're not going to let me finish.
No, I'm not.
Why not?
Because you are deliberately conflating events in Iraq with events in Britain. Shut up.
Muslims killed 50 in London.
Shut up and let me finish. Shut up and let me finish.
No Muslim outrage. I was talking, George. You talk, and then Muslims attack our troops. Muslims burn our copies. No Muslim outrage. Someone draws a cartoon of Muhammad. 700 people killed. 45 churches burned to the ground. Someone talks about burning. Someone talks about burning the Quran.
People killed where? 700 people killed where?
Most of them in Nigeria. Worldwide outrage.
We're talking about the English. Will you shut up? Will you shut up and let me talk? We're talking about the English Defence League, the presence of Muslims in England, or if you like, in Britain. Don't keep talking about things that happened in Nigeria or in Iraq. We're talking about the presence of 1.8 million Muslims in Britain and your campaign against them. The police say that you are causing more extremism by the thuggish, ignorant, violent campaign at which you are the self-appointed head. Now here's your last chance to tell us why the police are lying about you.
We are a symptom. Why don't they tackle the cause? Because everyone's too afraid to talk about the cause, the root of the problem. We're a symptom. We would not be here if there was not militant Islam in our towns and cities. Why don't someone talk about the problem? Why don't you talk about the problem, George? We're not the problem. We've only come about.
But the police say you are the problem, though.
Okay, but why they don't?
Why are the police lying about you?
Because they're petrified of the Islamic community, the same as everyone else is. They're worried about
the police are petrified of the Islamic community. Everyone's out of step except we, Tommy or Johnny or whatever his real name is.
So why don't anyone
Thanks
talk
very
about the
much
root cause?
indeed. That's the leader of the English Defence League, Tommy Robinson, though it's not really his name, and he made himself the leader.
Well, I was standing in the street in Goulburn Road in Notting Hill, not the sort of place you'd expect to be attacked. It's an area largely populated by Moroccan friends of mine, and I was just getting into my car when two such Moroccan citizens asked me if I would mind having my picture taken with them. So I was detained briefly to do that, and just as I was posing for a picture, suddenly, as if from nowhere, like a bat out of hell, this white man was running towards me, screaming abuse, foul language, and began raining punches upon me. The assault lasted for about 3 minutes, which doesn't sound like a long time, but is a long time when you're being repeatedly punched and kicked. I ended up smashing against the grill of a delicatessen near where I was parked, ended up on the ground, and at that stage I thought, this man is going to kick me to death. There was no one other than the two gentlemen and I in the street. They were themselves of an age, not quite as old as me, but of an age, and they clearly took some time to recover from the shock of what was happening themselves. In the end, both of them pulled the man off me. He then assaulted one of those, which is included on his charge sheet, and when they pulled him off me, I got into the car and called the police. Then I followed the assailant in the car with one of the Moroccan gentlemen all the way for about a mile, all the time, talking with the police, telling them where I was, where he was, and so on. The police then told me not to follow him any further because we were headed into narrow streets. But the police arrived just in time to see him getting on board the number 23 bus. And the police van drove in front of the bus, very dramatic, stopped the bus. The bus driver then got out, recognized me and the state that I was in, and was extremely distraught. And the police officers, women police officers I may say, very bravely piled onto the bus and arrested a man wearing an Israel Defense Force pink shirt with the logo of the IDF on the front and the Hebrew writing of the IDF's motto. So he clearly come dressed for the occasion. And he calmly turned around and allowed them to cuff him and take him away. I then had to go to hospital. I was quite badly hurt. My head and upper face, but most especially my rib cage, which remains excruciatingly painful. I can hardly move. I can't pick up my baby. I can't hug my wife. I can't pick up a cup without grimacing in pain. And it's now a few days after the assault. I'm taking very powerful painkillers. So the police helped me a lot, and the hospital, St. Mary's Paddington, looked after me wonderfully also. And a gentleman has now appeared in court, and I await the outcome of that. Well, I don't think it's to do with the comments that I made recently, but my 40 years of work on the Palestine question. The man was clearly, as we now know from his Facebook and Twitter account, an absolutely fanatical Zionist, a fanatical supporter of the IDF, whose shirt he was wearing when he attacked me.
Hey, all right, it's the last morning. I'm with Tommy Robinson, talking to him about this trip. So we're just going to pass the phone back and forwards, right?
Yes, sir.
So I'll tell you what, I'll ask the first question. Overall, the difference between Israel impressions and what you expected?
Well, overall, the main impression, you know, like when I said to anyone I knew as well, this is what shocked and surprised me. I said to anyone I know, I'm going to Israel. What the hell are we going there for? That's what everyone said. Everyone, my mum, my dad, my wife, don't go. Please don't go. As though like, and then the reality of coming here, we're in a beautiful country. I felt safe the entire time I'm here. More safe. I felt more safe walking around here than I do walking around Luton.
Last year, he was invited to visit Israel by another well-connected Zionist propagandist, Brian Thomas. Blogging under the name Brian of London, Thomas is leading member of the massive Zionist operation to flood social media with pro-Israeli propaganda. Brian can be seen in this photo posted on Twitter by Israeli army spokesperson Barak Raz. Robinson's host is shown standing between Raz on the right and the Jewish agency's social media propagandist Avi Meir. This appears to be more than just a fleeting meeting, as Meir, himself a former Israeli army spokesperson, has tweeted about meeting with Brian of London in February as well. It was Brian Thomas who posted this photo of Robinson smiling as he holds an automatic rifle while standing on an Israeli tank in the occupied Golan Heights. No ordinary Israeli citizen would be allowed to take a British guest into a military zone and to photograph him standing on an Israeli tank. This fact supports the claim by Arab activists that Brian's blogging operation is closely linked to Israeli military intelligence.
The person on the right at the bottom of the picture sitting next to Brian is a guy called David Collier, who is also a very interesting character. David Collier is basically the man behind the attacks on Jeremy Corbyn. He basically creates fake news and fake stories and feeds them to mainstream media, who then prints his lies. David Collier, as you can see, is pictured next to Brian Thomas. So, what is Tommy Robinson doing with people like Brian Thomas and David Collier? His job is to censor people, to stop freedom of speech in this country, to stop people from talking about Israel. I thought Tommy Robinson was all about freedom of speech. He's clearly a police asset. The campaign against anti-Semitism is a group that's basically doing the same job as Brian Thomas and David Collier. This is the actual website. We work closely with police forces around the country, the Crown Prosecution Service, regulatory bodies and government to ensure that anti-Semitism is detected, investigated and punished with the full force of the law. What gives them the power? Who do they think they are? Huh? We work closely with senior journalists and advertising professionals. Senior journalists? You mean like people in The Guardian? People who make fake news about anti-Semitism? What is this? We have forged links with the government, local authorities, regulators, police forces and Crown prosecution services, as well as companies such as major social networks, like Facebook. What is this small group having relationships with the government, the police force, and the Crown prosecution service? What's going on here? Litigation. We have recruited some of Britain's most formidable and acclaimed legal minds. Where did they get the money to hire these lawyers and solicitors? Who's paying for this? But they're not going to tell you who's paying for this, are they? Oh, look, here's the chairman, proud Zionist. He's a member of the Jewish National Fund, which is a racist, fascist organization. And the director of organization and finance, unnamed. Who is he? We don't know. It's MOSSAD. I know.
But the thing is, Yaxley Lennon was the name that he's been most frequently convicted under, was arrested outside Leeds Crown Court, having recorded a number of men, including defendants involved in a live trial, entering the court building and live streaming the footage on Facebook in what is said to be an attempt at legitimate court reporting. West Yorkshire Police, having been alerted to his activities, arrested him at the scene for a suspected breach of the peace and bundled him into a police van. So what do we know? Well, he was subject to this suspended sentence, which was imposed last year, when he was also held in contempt of court. On that occasion, during the course of a rape trial at Canterbury Crown Court. Now, I remember this. And he was definitely inciting people outside the court. So, what he's doing is against the law. So, he says he referred to the defendants as paedophiles and attempted to video them before settling for doing an on-camera speech inside the court building. Now, taking photographs or moving images inside a court building is one of the most obvious contempts of court you can commit. It's called Section 41 of the Criminal Justice Act 1925. And court buildings are full of signs reminding people not to do this, so contempt of court is a broad catch-all term for various offences against the administration of justice. I was told by a judge once that I was approaching contempt of court, and he said, "You will very soon be in contempt of court. You're showing contempt for the court." I said, "Well, I was actually trying to hide it," and he didn't laugh at all. But contempt can thus be committed in various ways, from taking a photograph or even drawing a picture. Court sketch artists have to draw outside the court from memory, which is interesting. They can't actually sketch those pictures in the court. That's probably why they don't look anything like the people that they're meant to be. And it could be to abusing a judge, to publishing news reports or tweeting comments that could prejudice the fairness of a trial if a jury were to see them. In particular, there's a common law offence of criminal contempt, which is defined by the courts as conduct that demotes willful defiance or disrespect towards the court, or that willfully challenges or affronts the authority of the court or the supremacy of the law itself. It is unclear from the reports of Lennon's case last year whether he was dealt with for an S41 contempt for the filming or a criminal contempt for his broader conduct in willfully creating a real risk of prejudice to the administration of justice. Either way, he was hauled in front of the judge here in the trial. So the procedure for a court dealing with a criminal contempt is set out in the criminal procedure rules, right? In summary procedure, where the court, having made its own inquiries and offered a contemnor, that is the official term, the chance to seek legal advice, can deal with the offender straight away. That's why he was asking for a lawyer, I suppose. Now, it's not about freedom of speech, this, or freedom of the press. It's about legitimate journalists. It's not about that. It's not about whether he's legitimate as a journalist, because he's not. It's about justice and ensuring that a trial can be carried out justly and fairly. So what he was doing, basically, cut a long story short, he's acting as an agent provocateur outside the court. What's this in chat? So did nothing to contravene. So it was just sentences. Several former police officers have already gone on YouTube saying he did nothing to contravene his suspended sentence. Well, he did if he was filming in the court. He was outside the court when they stopped him. But the point is that he's acting as an agent provocateur, and he's working against the interests of this country. He's working for a third-party interest, and he's trying to foment racial tension and racial hatred. That's actually what he's trying to do. I've got no time for these Israeli agents whatsoever, because they are the problem. And him, Katie Hopkins, Pat Condell and David Vance, it's kind of clearly obvious what they're up to.
Hello, sir, and why are you here today?
I'm here to protest, right? Because I'm going on a march because I want Britain to be back British. I want Britain to be back British. We've got interracial law, and the Muslimic infidel, they're trying to get their law over our country. And it is happening. It's happening in other countries. Everything, it's happening in every country. It's like you've got the Iraqi law that they put down in London. Like, we're more or less near London today, but they're trying to put the Iraqi law down on London. They're just trying to put their law down on us, and we can't stand for that.
Which Iraqi law is this?
It's the Muslimic law. They've got their law. Obviously, it's their law, isn't it? Like, there's no one. We can't do anything about that. But we're just trying to stop Muslimic. You've got Muslimic rape gangs nowadays. There's 15-year-olds getting raped and everything. It just can't happen. That's why all these people are there. All these people around us. That's why they're there.
Thank you very much.